What up? It's your boy LQ, Mr. Real Deal Fantasy HQ, and welcome to another great episode of RotoBaller Fantasy Sports YouTube channel. Please make sure you guys like and subscribe. But it's week 15. The fantasy playoffs are here. So I got 5 defenses you should be starting and 2 defenses you should be fading this week. You might have to make some tough decisions this week, but you got to make the right decisions this week to bring home the gold. So I don't want to waste any more time. So let's get right into the episode.
So we're jumping in with the Bears going up against the Cleveland Browns. Now, I like this matchup just based on this Bears defense, how they've been rejuvenated, upgraded, whatever you want to call it. But ever since the addition of Monte Sweat, they've been able to have fewer points per game allowed, fewer total yards per game allowed as well, while still maintaining getting after the quarterback and having some takeaways. In the last 4 games, the Bears had the most takeaways in the NFL. So going after Joe Flacco in this Browns offense, I really look at it as Joe Flacco's not as mobile as he used to be, and he's still a risk taker. He's still going downfield. He has 2 interceptions since coming off the couch. So the ability for the Bears to get the takeaways here is to pressure Joe Flacco, is to make him look downfield and make the deep throws and where they can get the takeaways and get some points on the board. So I like how this Bears defense have been playing in the last couple of weeks. They're a lock for me for the first round of the playoffs. Next, we're rolling with my Rams, man. I'm not being a homer here, but look at the matchup against the Commanders. Now, the Rams, oh my God, hell of a game last week going against Lamar and that Ravens O-line. They had the 3rd most QB pressures last week, so they have the ability to get after the quarterback. Of course, you have Aaron Donald there, but they got young players like Byron Young and the conductor. This defense has been flying around all across the field. It's been a while since I've been able to get excited and watch my Rams play football and stand up in front of the TV for like 40 minutes and have the ups and downs of emotions, et cetera, et cetera. But I just love this matchup against the Commanders because we already know Sam Howell's the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. So with the ability for this Rams defense to pin their ears back and get after Sam Howell, there are tons and tons of points on the board. The upside is there. I like the Rams this week. And look, I wouldn't tell you to do something I wouldn't do because I got the Rams everywhere this week, by the way. Listen, say what you want about the New England Patriots offense, but this defense has been elite. They were a pick for me last week going against the Steelers. And look, they did exactly what I expected them to do, was to maintain the points. There is upside this week, believe it or not, going up against Patrick Mahomes, because Mahomes has thrown an interception in back-to-back games. He's having a career low in multiple categories that matter. I mean, looking at his pass per attempts and looking at Mahomes under pressure, he's not the guy without Tyreek Hill or without Eric Bieniemy. This is a whole different Chiefs offense that we're looking at right now. I know we see Travis Kelce. I know you see Rashid Rice. They're getting their targets. They're getting their yards and et cetera, but they're not scoring points. And I like the Patriots as a team that can maintain the points with some type of upside. The Patriots this season, they're top 4 in the fewest yards per play allowed. So this is a defense that's been keeping a lot of things in check. I mean, you're looking at, they're giving out the 3rd fewest passing touchdowns this season as well. So if Mahomes is having trouble finding the end zone, I mean, he has 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games, but also 2 interceptions as well. So I like putting them in starting lineups this week for the playoffs. I can rely on this Patriots defense to maintain the points. I don't expect Mahomes to go out there and throw up 35 points. I expect this Patriots defense to keep him in check, keep the run game in check as well, because they've been magnificent against the run this season. A top 5 rush defense, and I definitely like that they have the ability to have some takeaways as well. If Mahomes is going to be a little risky, flustered, and overwhelmed like we saw last week, against the Bills, Patriots, they get a lock this week for me in starting lineups. Now, we're rolling with the Vikings against the Bengals this week, and the Vikings are a defense that can contain the points with some upside of turnovers this week. Now, looking at Jake Browning, he's definitely performing at a higher level than any of us expected. I know for me, I speak for myself, I didn't expect him to go out there and throw for 350 or anything like that, but the Vikings have been great at keeping teams in check in the last 4 games. They're allowing the 3rd fewest big plays, which are passes of 20-plus yards, rushes of 10-plus yards. So they've been keeping that in check in the last 4 games. The 3rd fewest rush yards per game allowed, and the 9th fewest pass yards per game in the last 4 games. So they've been kind of keeping everything in front of them, keeping it in check, not allowing a ton of points. So this is a game where the Vikings can contain the points with some upside as well, because the Bengals struggled last week to convert on 3rd down. There were only 3 of 11. So this is a chance where they can get the pressure on Jake Browning and create some turnovers. And what turnovers create? They create fantasy points. So I like the upside that the Vikings have this week going against the Bengals, because all they really have to do is to contain Jamar Chase. If they can contain Jamar Chase, keep him from getting the big plays, like I said, they can make a big wave here, saying that they're a defense that can be legit and relied on in the fantasy playoffs. So Vikings, don't let me down this week. This is the biggest gamble I would say that I'll be doing this week, but I really like them this week with the upside that they have to create some turnovers, get some pressure, and get some fantasy points. Now, hopefully you stashed them this long. The Falcons, of course, going against the Panthers. Whoever go against the Panthers, you have to put them in starting lineups. But look, I don't need to go in vivid detail of how many points are on the table for the Falcons going against Bryce Young and this Panthers O-line. I mean, look, Bryce Young has 4 fumbles in the last 4 games, so the turnovers are there for you. The takeaways we know with Jesse Bates and this Falcons defense, completely night and day, and they have the ability to put some pressure on Bryce Young as well. So sacks, turnovers, fumbles, interceptions, whatever you want to call it. Maybe a pick 6. Maybe Jesse Bates runs back another one in this game. So I like the Falcons as a solid defense that you should have in starting lineups. Now let's get into some defenses that I think you should be fading. Got 2 fades for you for the first round of the fantasy playoffs. Now, I'm going to be fading the Jets versus the Dolphins. The Dolphins will be home in this matchup, and they put up 34 points last time that the Jets met with them in MetLife. So you're looking at this Dolphins offense, man, they're averaging 38 points per game at home this season. That's the most in the NFL. So I'm not liking the Jets' chances to contain the points here. I know they've been kind of sparking up when it comes to the QB pressures. They've been able to get after the quarterback. Huff has been doing an amazing job in the last couple of weeks. But listen, you're going up against a high power offense with Tua that is just looking like the MVP, with Tyreek Hill just lighting it up. Could probably put up 3,000 yards this season if there was 2 more games added. So I'm going to be fading the Jets just based on this high-powered Dolphins offense, and they might be looking like they're going to get blown out as well. Now, another defense that I will be fading as well is the Houston Texans, and it's not really anything to do with their defense. It's just that this Texans offense has lost a lot of key players like CJ Stroud with a head injury. He's banged up. No Nico Collins. You got Dalton Schultz returning back from hammy injury, and then you have no Tank Dell for the rest of the season. So I'm not quite sure how this Texans defense is going to look, because they're probably going to be exhausted going against this Titans offense with Derrick Henry just beating them down. I'm constantly thinking that if Davis Mill goes in there's not going to be much juice for this offense to let the defense get a rest. So I'm really thinking that the Texans could be a fade this week. I wouldn't try to get too cute. I would pivot to other defenses there just based on this offense that was such a high power offense. CJ Stroud looking amazing. I just really think that this Texans defense is going to be over exhausted, but I wouldn't drop them. I wouldn't drop this defense. I would hold on if you make it to the next round. If you pivot to another defense and they get you those points that you need to make it to the next round, I just feel as though if CJ Stroud comes back and Nico Collins isn't that banged up and Dalton Schultz is playing somewhat at a good level, I could roll the dice because there's still some life there in the running game with Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce. It's just unfortunate that this was my defense that I was going to ride with for the next 3 weeks into the playoffs. But man, got to make some pivot moves. You got to make the hard decisions, but you got to make the right decisions because it's time to bring home the gold. So this wraps up another great episode of RotoBaller Fantasy Sports YouTube channel. Please make sure you like and subscribe. We are almost there to 20K. And please leave your comments below of your start and sit questions, and I'll try to answer them all up until game time. And of course, you guys can follow me at Real Deal Fantasy on all social media platforms. Until next time.